show of hands, who wants to live in a place that overlooks the ocean? Pick me! Owning a waterfront condo can be a phenomenal way to get on the water for a lower purchase price than a single family home. But there are some hidden costs associated with buying an oceanfront condo that you need to think about and plan for. Now, I've made a few videos on this subject recently, and I still have more to say about it. So believe me, this is information that you need to hear if you're thinking about doing something like this. We rented a condo in Pacific Beach in San Diego recently, and it looked out to the ocean, and we could walk down to the beach, and it was amazing. And it reinvigorated my fantasies about having an oceanfront place. But San Diego is pretty pricey, so I started looking at different waterfront markets around the country. I looked at Tybee Island and Destin and Myrtle Beach and Hawaii. So I started to dive deeper into Hawaii. My family absolutely loves going there. It's not that terribly far from Minnesota, and we love the beaches and the food and the scenery. And some of the islands like Kauai and the Big Island have towns that have incredibly high occupancy rates for rentals, which would mean that we could buy something and then rent it out when we're not using it ourselves, effectively having guests paying down the expenses of the property. Now, there are lots of places where you can't have a short-term rental on the islands of Hawaii. So if you're considering exploring this, make sure to reach out to me so I can connect you with an excellent agent on the island you're looking that will steer you in the right direction on where you can buy and where you can't buy real estate if you're wanting to rent it out when you're not using it yourself. Another major bonus about Hawaii is that hurricanes are pretty rare there. The last major hurricane hit the islands in 1992, Hurricane Iniki, and it did cause a lot of devastation. And that was over 30 years ago. And the last hurricane to hit was in 2018, which feels like yesterday, but it was really 6 years ago. But when I started diving deeper into the market in Hawaii and what to expect, exploring buying, I realized that Hawaii and condo associations there are facing some really major challenges, not unlike Florida and other places with waterfront condos. So let's dive into what's happening. Starting with renewals in 2023, condo projects faced incredibly huge rate hikes for their hurricane coverage. Insurance companies nationally have faced large losses in the last few years, and I've talked about this in previous videos. It's caused huge hikes in their premiums. And this isn't just for condos, it's for single-family homes too.
68-year-old Tina Zaro has paid off her home in Lake Worth, Florida, and is living off Social Security. But her home insurance has skyrocketed by a whopping 130%.
Part of the strategy for the insurance companies in trying to right the ship is by lowering their exposure on the policies that they've already written. Starting in 2023, those existing policies had massive hikes in their premiums for condo projects, wanting to continue with 100% replacement coverage. Associations could help minimize the rising cost of insurance by opting for a limit of less than 100% coverage. To clarify, the condo projects being affected by these massive rate hikes are the large concrete structures with 5 or more floors. The insurance companies don't want to give 100% replacement coverage because they know that even with the most powerful hurricane, the structure will remain. The odds that the building would sustain such significant structural damage and need to be torn down after a hurricane is highly unlikely. Insurance, as a percentage of the project's total annual cost, is growing fast. Condo boards of directors are being backed into a corner, and if they don't authorize 100% replacement coverage, the building no longer qualifies for financing. But by taking the full coverage, owners will face huge increases in their fees. Now, I haven't spoken with an attorney about this, but if the board were to opt for lower coverage, which would make financing impossible for the project, can they legally do that? Legal or not, some condo associations are doing it. And every day more projects are being added to the list of buildings where financing is no longer available. Now, let's talk about the implications of that. You might not personally be thinking of buying a condo, but if you or a loved one owns a condo, this situation impacts you significantly. Could you imagine owning a condo for several years and then due to circumstances you want to go ahead and sell, and then you find out that financing is not available for prospective buyers? Do you think that there's going to be a lot of people who will be able to buy your condo at that point? There's lots of reasons you may think you're going to keep that condo for many years to come, but then life happens. A spouse dies, or a parent dies, or divorce happens, or your job takes you elsewhere. What is your condo worth if a buyer can't obtain financing? What are you going to do if you need to sell your condo? This issue has been growing since renewals began in last year in 2023. We would have reasonably thought that the lending industry in 2023, which was already slowed by higher interest rates, would have found a way to make an exception. But the 100% replacement rule, it's not just a local bank policy, but it's the policy of Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac. Those government entities will not adjust their policies for the state of Hawaii, for example, which is stuck out in the middle of the Pacific. And if Fannie Mae and Freddie won't change their guidelines, the very conservative local banks in Hawaii aren't going to budge either. If you're considering buying a condo, before you even put in an offer, even before you go and look at the unit, you should have your real estate agent inquire with the listing agent about the current hurricane coverage. Now, if the answer that the listing agent gives your agent is that they have a sub limit, which is just a different way for saying that they do not have 100% coverage, maybe it's time to look at another project. That's unless you're going to pay in cash. But then again, if the board is forced to increase the coverage, you'll see your future monthly maintenance fees jump up. If you own a high-rise condo, ask your property manager or board of directors if the project has 100% replacement coverage for the hurricane policy. You need to either prepare for a big hike in fees or be concerned about financing being available for your project. Now, let's say you're still interested in a waterfront condo and you've done your due diligence and it's something that you want to do. Great. I get it. I meant it when I said that I find waterfront condos very appealing and tempting. And there are just some additional things beyond what I've already said that you're going to want to look into. First, make sure you've reviewed those condo documents inside, outside, upside down with a magnifying glass and a fine-tooth comb, including what I already said about the insurance coverage, the bylaws, the articles of incorporation, the financials, the meeting minutes, and the reserve study. You may remember from a previous video I made, this information is vital because a poorly functioning board usually means a poorly managed property. Depending on where you're planning to buy, this information may not be automatically provided as part of the home buying process. So if this isn't just given to you early on in the purchase process, make sure to request it, to get your hands on it and read through it thoroughly. Ask your realtor about this. It varies depending on where you're looking to buy, but where I live and sell real estate in Minnesota, we have what's called a statutory right of rescission. And what this means is that the buyer of any sort of property within an association has an extra contingency period, which automatically defaults to 10 days from the time when they receive the full set of association documents. They have 10 days to review the documents, and the buyers can cancel at any time in that time frame and receive their full refund of earnest money. And many states have extra contingency periods like this for properties within an association, so that if you're trying to buy within a hot market, you still have the time you need to do your due diligence. And the reserve studies that I mentioned before should show a lot of the major components that will need to be upgraded in the future and the budget for those. But you can still walk around the complex and take note of the general states that different things are in. If you're in Hawaii, but the steps going up to the unit are made of wood, well, due to humidity and salt air and insects, at some point, these wood steps are going to need to be upgraded. For example, if the exterior of the building looks well kept and in good repair, even if you're not a contractor or a professional, you can determine that that is a lot more promising than a complex with a number of deferred maintenance issues or somewhere that is in really bad shape. A lot of the major issues that we've spoken about involve high-rise buildings with 5 stories or more built too close to the beach. So wouldn't it make sense to focus your condo search on not as high buildings that aren't right on the beach, but potentially still have ocean views, and also complexes that don't have as many units in them? And don't forget that whether you're buying a single family home or a condo within an association, it is just reasonable and common sense that you're going to have to pay for maintenance on the property. This needs to be budgeted in no matter what kind of real estate you're buying. And if you're planning to rent out your property as a short-term rental when you're not personally using it, maintenance budget should be higher than if you were going to rent to a long-term renter or just use the property yourself as a second home or a vacation home. Unless you're an avid surfer or ocean swimmer, you may want to consider living across the street from the ocean or a little ways back, or even on a lake or a river instead of oceanfront, so that you can still have the water featured, but you can avoid many of the problems I've been talking about for this entire video. Drop me a comment where you're watching from, and if you liked this video, you'll be sure to love this next one, so watch on.